It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Talivia Cole, and I am the founder and executive director of V3 Incorporated. Our organization focuses on interrupting and dismantling cycles of structural and systematic racism. I appreciate you all for coming out today, coming out to Kenosha, Wisconsin, at the Kenosha Unified School District for this essential press conference. People, community, world, we are here again. And I assure you that we come in peace, but we also come with passion and strategy to ensure that justice be served for our youth. We are supposed to come and protect our children, no matter what mistakes they make along the way. They deserve to breathe. And as a community, it is our first duty, obligation, when it comes to our children, to protect them, no matter what. So my question for you today is, if not us, then who? Who will stand up and protect our babies? I want to start by thanking the father, Jarrell Perez, and the lawyer, Drew Devaney, for being present today. And I want to thank all the members of the community and all the organizations who stood behind us, whether they're from Milwaukee, Chicago, Kenosha, nationwide. I want to thank you all for ensuring our collaborative voices for this child works. I want to thank Khalif Muawel with All of Us or None, Wisconsin. I want to thank Omar with Milwaukee Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I want to thank Kenosha Court, who is here to ensure safety and peace for all members of the community. I want to thank Angela Harris with the Black Educators Caucus, Milwaukee. I want to thank Femi Akamaladin from the Milwaukee chapter of the Poor People's Campaign. I want to thank Xavier Simmons with Change is Coming. Von Mays with Community Task Force of Milwaukee. The Violence Interrupters, NEP. All of Us or None, Chicago. Elizabeth Webb with My Sister's House. Laura Bielefeld with the Burlington Coalition Dismantling Racism. Kendra Copen with Education Justice Coalition. And I want to thank the school board itself for being out here with us in solidarity. I have a few housekeeping rules before we bring up speakers. 1, respect the mic. You will hear from the father and attorney today. So I ask the media to respect the family and be mindful of the questions that you ask, considering that this is an ongoing investigation. And the attorney and the family is limited to what they say. The few organizations will speak will have 3 minutes max. A signal where 1 minute warning will be signed to you. And with that being said, I do want to bring up the first speaker, Laura Bielefeld with the Burlington Coalition Dismantling Racism, who will address why we are here today.
Thank you, Talivia, and all of you that have come out today to hear us. We have gathered everyone here today to bring awareness to an incident that took place at Lincoln Middle School. We became aware of this incident when viral videos were posted to social media. On Friday, March 14th, Kenosha Police Department Officer Guetschow chose to escalate a situation involving middle school students to gain control. Officer Guetschow made a choice that day. Officer Guetschow is a grown man, a Kenosha police officer, and a security guard at Lincoln Middle School. He should be fully trained in de-escalation techniques. The outcome of Officer Guetschow's choices that day could have resulted in the death of a 12-year-old little girl. I thank God that that was not the outcome. But that does not mean that harm was not done to all of the students who witnessed the incident. This 12-year-old little girl has sustained multiple injuries and is now traumatized and scared and terrified of police officers. We are here today for accountability and reconciliation. We are here today for justice. With that, I will turn it over to Vaughn Mays of Community Task Force MKE, who will elaborate on this events of March 14th. Thank you all.
Thank you to Olivia. Honor to the father here. The death of George Floyd was an example of one of the many atrocities we have seen in policing in this nation. We saw even law enforcement agencies denounce and detest the tactic of placing a knee on the neck, which killed a grown man. So why are we here today? We are here today because yet another white male officer saw it fit in a school of young children to place his knee on the neck of a young black girl, causing injury. We are here because not only is the focus on de-escalation still not being prioritized, but we even have state legislators pushing to return law enforcement into these schools and legitimizing the tactic of chokeholds, which, in my opinion, and in the opinion of Milwaukee and other places where we have successfully banned those things, they still find some reason to validate a need for it in some instances. And that is a problem. These are examples that express why that is a problem, why the focus should not be placing law enforcement to handle spouts and spats between children into these schools to where we can see the outcome being the knee placed on a young child's neck. The focus needs to be de-escalation. Chokeholds need to remain banned across the state for any reason. They should not be prioritized by state legislators and lawmakers. And we challenge those GOP state legislators and anybody who has supported their legislation. Why are they not speaking out on these instances? Why are they disregarding these instances? And with that, I'll yield to the next speaker.
Thank you, Vaughn Mays. Now we will have Femi Akamaladin with the Poor People's Campaign, who will discuss statistics and data.
In the book, Invisible No More, Andrea J. Ritchie says, quote, "I got the message. The police are not here to protect me. They are just as likely as anyone else to commit violence against me," end quote. Neighbor, how are you? Neighbor, how are the children? Neighbor, how are the youth? It is a very genuine question. It is a question of concern and desire for your welfare. For all of us behind me, we are not okay. We are not okay because a little girl is not okay. She is not okay after encountering police violence. As someone on behalf of the Wisconsin Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival, we understand very clearly that there are 140 million poor and low-wage workers within this nation. That number has reached 150 million due to this pandemic. In Wisconsin alone, there is 2 million or 35% of the population who are poor or low wage. And of that 2 million, 1.4 million are white. I say that to say that we are all tied together. We all have a common interest in this matter of police brutality and violence against the poor. In our particular situation today, as it relates to children, 49% of our children are living in poor or low-wage homes. In comparison to white children, black children are 5 or 6 times as much to be living in poor or low-wage households in the state of Wisconsin. And so, we know that police violence affects poor and low-wage people, and very specifically, black and brown bodies. On November 2nd, 2021, the Marshall Project put out an article entitled, "Police Hurt Thousands of Teens. Many are children, or black girls." The article mentioned black girls aged 15 to 19 were 4 times as likely as white girls to be hurt. It further mentioned, it estimates that emergency rooms nationwide treated 21,000 people under the age of 18 for non-fatal injuries at the hands of police and security guards from 2015 through 2019. More than 7,000 of them, or a third, were black youth, even though they account for just 13% of children in America. We know this country's data is very poor for tracking violence of police officers on youth. We will hear very shortly that number in 2022 has a body, has a name, as this little girl has been affected by that number. We know that many departments fail to have written policies and procedures when interacting with youth. Andrea J. Ritchie in her book stated that black girls have become the fastest growing population to experience school suspensions and expulsions, establishing them as a clear target. And so we are here to stop the routine of violence in Kenosha.
Right.
We are here to stop the routine of violence in the state of Wisconsin. These incidents of violence are easily seared in the hearts and minds of our hearts. We are easily reminded of McKinney, Texas. Seared in our minds is a young girl, Dajeria Becton, getting pulled by the arm face down by a police officer at a pool party. Burnt in our minds is a South Carolina girl, Shakara, as a violent act upon her, where police picked up the desk with her still in it, slamming her and the desk to the ground. Burnt in our minds is George Floyd in 2020 in the incident where a police officer is kneeling on his neck. And now, even outside of that, we have another incident where a girl has to face the hardships of being having a knee to her neck. Does our neck look like an object or open space where you can park your neck on? And this we know that the way we treat children is the way we treat each other. And so I started to ask a question today. If we are going to go anywhere forward, there must be a mutual concern and an interest towards each other. We cannot only ask the question this way, but you must ask the question this way as well to us. Neighbor, how are you? Neighbor, how are the children? Neighbor, how are the youth? I think we're going to hear from the family in just a short moment. And so it's appropriate for us to ask the family, how is the child?
Right, that's right.
Thank you, Femi, with the Poor People's Campaign. Now we will hear from the family themselves, the father, Jarrell Perez, an attorney.
Thank you, guys. Coming out. My name is Drew Deviney. I'm here and I'm honored to be standing next to my client, Jarrell Perez. I want to provide a little bit of background before I let Mr. Perez make a comment. But first, what I want to emphasize is that Mr. Perez is a single father. It cannot be underplayed the amount of dedication and fight he has in him for his children, including his daughter that was involved in the incident that we're here to talk about. We're keeping her name confidential for the time being, but what we can say is that she is a 12-year-old girl, 6th grade student at Lincoln Middle School. School describes her as a, quote, very respectful student. We can also say that on March 4th, Jarrell's daughter was sitting in the school cafeteria when she became the victim of bullying. The videos that have been publicly released show Jarrell's daughter defending herself against another student who had assaulted her. Lincoln Middle School employs a Kenosha police officer named Shawn Guetschow as a part-time security guard. He intervened to separate the two students. I want to walk through what the videos show. The publicly available videos show that the officer first pulled the other student off of Jarrell's daughter, at which point he lost his balance and fell backwards, pulling Jarrell's daughter with him. It must be emphasized that no point did Jarrell's daughter push or strike at this officer. After the officer fell backwards into a cafeteria table, he gripped his arm around Jarrell's daughter's throat and pushed her onto the ground into a prone position. He then placed his right hand on the back of her neck and crushed her head and neck into the cafeteria floor. As he held her face against the floor, he positioned himself behind her, lifted his right leg, and pressed his knee down into the back of her neck. This mirrored the same maneuver that Derek Chauvin used to murder George Floyd.
Unacceptable.
The officer continued to push his knee into Jarrell's daughter's neck as she told him she couldn't breathe. Eventually, this officer went so far as to handcuff this little girl, and she was arrested and removed from the school. We have an incident report from the school which we can share, dated that day of the incident. The incident report confirms that the school was aware that Jarrell's daughter was placed into a prone position and that a chokehold restraint was used against her. The Kenosha PD has referred her for charges. What is important to know is that no charges that we are aware of have been filed against Officer Guetschow, despite video evidence showing him using an illegal maneuver against the 12-year-old victim of bullying. We understand that the school has security video. We have requested to see that video. We believe that that video will exonerate the pending charges against Jarrell's daughter. Unfortunately, the school and the police have denied our request to see the video. Some comments about why we're here. This is a viscerally upsetting incident. There is no excuse for what happened at this school on that day. The risk of harm for the use of a chokehold restraint is obvious. It's death. And this is especially so considering the force used against a fragile 12-year-old neck. KPD's response to this incident is equally as troubling. And we're here to find out more information and ask this community to continue to stand behind Mr. Perez. Right now, our primary concern is Mr. Perez's daughter. She has been through a traumatic incident. She's recovering physically and emotionally. And again, we thank the community for showing her support. And although it's important to amplify this message, we ask that you respect Mr. Perez's wishes to maintain his daughter's privacy. She did not deserve what happened to her, and she also does not deserve the attention that this event can create. But Mr. Perez hopes that the community can continue to stand behind him and lift his daughter up while still protecting her privacy. So why the lawyer? Our sole concern is this little girl, and seeing that she's protected from these bogus charges and seeing that she gets the help that she needs. Jarrell's hope is that by fighting for his daughter, he'll make sure that this does not happen to anyone again. Right. So what can we do? Certainly, and I can promise you this, when Jarrell's daughter is ready, we will be filing a lawsuit to hold Officer Guetschow, KPD, and the school district accountable for this girl's shocking injuries. But the question is, what is going to be enough? What's enough to create the meaningful change that Jarrell wants to see? If the world witnessing the slow murder of George Floyd wasn't enough to stop this from happening, what is? If the conviction of Derek Chauvin for using the same technique that Shawn Guetschow used wasn't enough to save this child from this injury, what is? If making this maneuver illegal, it wasn't enough to erase decades of poor training and biases drilled into the minds of law enforcement officers, then what is? What would have been enough to have stopped Shawn Guetschow from pushing his knee into the neck of Mr. Perez's daughter's neck? What would be enough to make sure that this doesn't happen to any Kenosha school children, any child from Wisconsin, or anyone in the nation again? I suggest that the answer is Jarrell Perez. It's parents and citizens like him who are brave enough to come before you and to stand up against the police when this happens. Right. It's bravery for him to ask his community for help. He's not backing down against bogus charges, and by not letting this be swept under the rug. Keep in mind, the only video of this that have been released are bystander videos from children. That's the only reason we know that this happened. The other answer is the folks behind me and you, it's the community. So what do? Don't let this blow over. That's their tactic. Demand answers, demand information, and don't forget about Jarrell's daughter. This happened to her, but it's happening all around the country, and it's not going to stop until we stop shining light on it. And I think I want to leave one final note here. It's to note that this happened at a school. So let this be a learning opportunity to those responsible. If you commit an act of unlawful violence against one of our kids, the legal consequences will be steep. With that, I want to turn it over to my client.
Good afternoon. My name is Jarrell Perez. I want to thank the community and everybody behind me, all the organizations that have been helping me. They call me every day, every night, making sure me and my daughter and all our kids are good. I want to thank the community for giving awareness and for giving awareness to police brutality and the unfair treatment that KPD officer put on his knee on my daughter. It hasn't been charged yet. So a little bit about my daughter. So she's humiliated. She's traumatized. Every day I got to hear, "Daddy, I don't want to go to school." It breaks me because I wasn't there to help her. I felt helpless, you know. I didn't get the video until around 7 p.m. At that time, my daughter was already in punishment, telling me her neck hurts. I was thinking that she was trying to get out of a punishment. So when I got the video, me as a parent felt the guilt. Right now, we went to a birthday party the other day, and she didn't even want to get out the car. I had to take her back home. So as a father, I feel like I let her down because I couldn't help her. I want to see this officer get charged, because if it was me or another parent or any adult that put their knee on a kid, that would be abuse. Why does that make him any different? Again, my daughter.
We can't say too much because we still don't know the full extent of her injuries, but we'll keep you in the loop with that.
Well, as of right now, she's going to therapy, and has to see a neurologist because of her injuries. I had to witness at home my 6-year-old son crushed his dreams, as in telling me that I don't want to be a cop no more. And that hurts me. That hurts me. And I want to just say thank you to everybody and hope justice for my daughter.
Want to thank Jarrell again and his lawyer, Drew. Give him a hand once again. And we are with you and your daughter all the way through. All right, and let's try to save our questions for the end. Thank you. I do want to bring up our next speaker, Omar Flores, from the Milwaukee Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, who's going to talk about the list of demands.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omar Flores. I'm a co-chair of the Milwaukee Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, and I'm here today to stand in unwavering solidarity with the Perez family. Our organization feels deeply for what's going on with them, as this is something that we've seen over and over again for too often. As it was mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the demands today, but I feel like the demands just don't really, they don't make much sense without some context, right? And so you're probably up here wondering, why is somebody from Milwaukee coming over here to Kenosha to talk about what's happening in Kenosha? Well, I grew up in Kenosha. I grew up in KUSD. I've experienced the racism that happens in these schools, and I know for a fact that it's only worse for black students. And not only that, I've also organized in Kenosha, and I know that these demands are nothing new. The demand for change is nothing new. You just have to talk to Michael Bell about it and the other organizers that have been working on this for years. Michael Bell was able to get change in the state before he was able to get change here in the city. And that just shows you that there's a good old boys club here in Kenosha that is refusing change, that is absolutely refusing change. And the reason why you see a police officer think it's okay to abuse a child is because they're allowed to get away with it.
That's right.
They're only going to do what they're allowed to do. And so that's why these demands are so important, because what we saw in 2020 is going to happen again if all there is just talk. If there's just all this talk happening and no actual action happening. If there was actual change happening, this officer wouldn't have felt safe abusing a child, but he feels safe doing that. And so with that, I'm going to introduce the demands because, if these demands aren't met, it's just going to continue happening. And we need to see change for the community, because this could be anybody's kid. Look at what happened to that child and think if that you would feel okay with that happening to your kid. I know I wouldn't. And so for the first demand, we're demanding that KUSD immediately release the video of what happened that day, because that's the bare minimum. We're just asking for transparency and that it showed to the family and the lawyer. Number two, we are demanding that the officer is immediately placed on unpaid leave through KPD, because KPD and KUSD are trying to bounce it back and forth to each other like, it's only one person's fault. It's both of their faults. So KPD needs to take action. Number three, the officer needs to be immediately terminated from his position in KUSD, because there is no room for child abusers in a school. Right. And for number four, we need to see DA Gravely not charge this child with anything, because she is a victim. If she is charged with that saying, is that we're going to punish you for speaking up. When an injustice happens, we're going to punish you, and we do not want to see that happen. Right. And for number five, and I feel this is the most important one, to make sure that we don't see this happen again, is that KUSD end all contracts with KPD. It's something that's happening in other schools. It's something that's been successful in other schools. There's absolutely no reason why KUSD and the school board cannot take KPD out of KUSD. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Now we are going to hear from Elizabeth Webb with My Sister's House, who will talk about the call to action.
Hi. First of all, gratitude to all who's come out and joined us today. Our goal is to make our voice loud enough to be heard by the superintendent and those with the power to change things, not by shouting, but by works and deeds. Sign on to our petition to remove the cops from schools permanently. If we need the police, they can be called. There's no need to occupy our schools, creating a war zone atmosphere for our children. A middle school does not need police to secure them when the community could be present to deal with our children. That's why we have groups like K-Core. That's why we have groups like My Sister's House. That's why we have groups like LOK. Numerous studies, including a 2017 national study by the Journal of Policy Analysts and Management, found that Additional officers in school fed 2.5 times more in school arrests annually of children between the age of 7 and 14. Not only are they doing this to kids in middle school and in high school, they're doing this to kids in elementary schools, and that's happening here in Kenosha. My own nephew, who's autistic, was dragged down the hallway by a so-called security officer, a police officer off duty.
Unacceptable.
This is unacceptable. We need our people of Kenosha as parents to stand with us, sign the petition, come out to the KUSD school board meetings, which will be held on the 22nd here at the KUSD building behind us, and speak up. Voice your opinion because your opinions matter. Your voices matter. Your words matter. Your children's lives matter. And if we don't stand up as a community, if we don't stand up as a people to fight against what is going on in our own schools, then we're not doing anything to help the situation. I stand in support of the Corps. I stand in support of the families. I stand in support of the children that are being victimized on a daily basis.
Right.
This is happening. This has been happening. This is not something new. The only thing new about what happened with this baby is it was videotaped. We've seen this happen time and time again. Our own children are suffering at the hands of police officers implemented and placed inside of our schools. We can't continue to allow this to happen. They're criminalizing children at the age of 5 before they can even have an outlook of life, before they can even have a chance to even succeed. How do you become a criminal at the age of 12, but the officer who kneeled on her knee is still getting paid? He's not been fired. He's not been replaced or removed from his position. They're still allowing him to be paid off of our money, off of our tax dollars, and that's unacceptable. We cannot allow the continued harassment and the victimization of children within schools. They are placed in 8 hours of custody of these authorities, and then the blame is placed on the parents. When are we going to actually take that blame and place it to where it needs to be? Today, we stand with this family, we stand with the children of the KUSD, and we are here to make a change. And we demand that change to be made now. KUSD, you have all this funding that just came into your school. Put it towards training. Put it towards something to better educate our children that are being so totally left behind. These children aren't criminals. They're kids. We need to stand with them. And we need to make sure we held this officer accountable. There's no acceptance of him being still on paid leave. There's no reason for him to still have a job. If it was me, I'd be in jail.
That's right.
Kenosha County Sheriff or Chief of Police sat in my house and told me that I couldn't physically restrain my son as a parent, and I would be charged with child abuse.
That's right.
That was child abuse. That was complete and total neglect. And it was taken. You took a position where you were able to do something the right way and totally did it the wrong way. How does the sheriff say in 2020 that we don't practice that type of move to subdue suspects, and then you see it on camera? This man is still not fired. He still hasn't been charged with anything, and he's still on your paid administrative board.
In America.
This is happening all across America, and it's happening in our city. If as a city of Kenosha, we don't stand up against this now, we are gonna allow this to continue to go on. This is happening every day. Even your security guards, even your parents that are security guards inside the school are putting themselves in positions to be a stop hold to what's going on with these officers you placed inside the school. Even they know the dangers that the children are facing, and on a daily basis are making sure they're there to make sure these kids aren't harmed. When are we going to take responsibility to make sure somebody else's kids aren't harmed? We need to stand up, and we need to stand up now. I thank you all for coming. Please come to the KUSD meeting on the 22nd. Voice your opinion. There's an email address as well that I'm sure they'll share with you, where you can put in, vocalize what it is that you feel needs to be done and how it can be done. And your voice matters. They have to listen to somebody. They have to listen to somebody now. And this is the time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Elizabeth Webb. Once again, you heard why we are here. Once again, you heard the overview of the incident. You heard the statistics and data. You heard the attorney and the father of the 12-year-old who was misused, abused, and her rights were violated. Once again, you heard the demands of the people, and you heard the call to action. So once again, what are you here for? What are you going to do? Because Milwaukee is here in Kenosha right now. Chicago is here in Kenosha right now. Kenosha is here in Kenosha right now, right? So continue to come out, continue to be with us. Speak on our demands so that this officer is not an officer again. So this officer are not in our schools. So please speak out. And with that being said, I yield the floor to any questions.
Just a remark, could you stress the importance of how parents need to advocate strongly for their children? It could be from anyone of or any one of the leaders. Our Kenosha parents need to advocate strongly for their children and never cease.
Anybody, 1 second.
There you go. I was gonna do it while you were talking, but
I'm sorry, what was your question, Alvin?
the remarks. Stress again to our press for our community and how it's important for our parents to advocate for their children and never cease. Our Kenosha parents, especially African American, Black and Brown student parents.
It's important for our parents to express and advocate for the removal of these officers of your school, because it could be your child tomorrow. It could be your child in the next couple hours. Like, I'm in fear of what's going to happen for anybody else whose child has to go up in front of this officer or who has a little dispute. They're taking away the parenting tactics that we could be implementing in our own homes. They didn't conversate with this man about his child. They didn't conversate with the other little girl and her parents about their child or what was going on. They are aware of situations throughout the school. So why aren't they giving us an opportunity to parent our own children? Right. But then the public has the nerve to say the parents are bad parents. No, if you're not given the opportunity to intervene, how can you save your child from being another criminal at the age of 12? How can we help a situation if we are not aware of the situation? You're aware of the situations, you bring the police officers into the situations. You don't include the parents. When are you going to include the parents? When are we as the parents going to make sure that we are included in what's going on? So it's very important that the parents advocate and come out and speak up and be present in your children's lives, in your children's education. On a daily basis, you know what's going on with your child. If you don't know what's going on with your child, make it a point. Make it a point, because there's so much between bullying, between the different little beefs that's going on between these children. There's a way that we as parents can sit down with our children and advocate for them. There's no way that we sit there and leave this in the hands of the law, who doesn't care about our children. They want to make another brown and black children another criminal. That's what your purpose is, because you don't want them to succeed in life. Right. If our educational system is failing to protect them in that way, they're failing to protect their future as well.
What would your message be for other parents who would compel you to be here?
Stand and fight for your child, as we always have. Stand and fight for your child, as we always have, because nobody's going to fight for them except you and the community.
So no charges have been filed yet, but they've been referred by the Kenosha Police Department. What happens is up to them.
Do you know what those charges are?
We do, but we can't discuss those any further because it's a juvenile matter.
Jarrell, can I ask you a question? I wanted to know, has she been back to school yet, and how is she doing in school?
So as far as back to school, you can answer that.
What was your question, Terry?
I'm sorry, has she been back to school yet, and how is she doing? As far as
No,
that?
right now, the doctor gave her 2 weeks out of school. Give her 2 weeks out of school. She's been in bed most of the time.
Hey, Cora, the attorney, has anybody offered assistance for trauma for our students over at Lincoln? You guys know of? Did our district or anybody provide training? Trauma assistance for our children of what they witnessed?
No, we haven't had any, no health department, no
Our
nothing.
children were never spoken to or anything.
No, I think, I think it's a part of the parents' job to see what's going on with their kids. A lot of kids don't want to speak up to anybody, so I would just say, talk to your kids.
Mr. Perez, this is probably a hard question, but can you talk to us about what you felt when you watched the video of what happened to your daughter?
Of course. So like I was saying in the beginning, when I got the call, they said that my daughter got into a fight and an officer was involved and busted his head and supposedly he punched him. That's what was said to me by another officer when they called me. So when I picked my daughter up and we got home, I thought my daughter was trying to get out of a punishment, so she stayed in her room still complaining about her neck. How I felt 5 hours after that, when I got the video and the picture, I was crushed. I was crushed. I felt helpless as a father. I felt like I let my daughter down. Because this is a grown man we're talking about. On top of an officer. You know what you did.
Right. Thank you, Jarrell. Thank you, Jarrell, once again. We're going to open the floor for the Kenosha School Board member.
Thank you very much. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, but I am speaking as a parent, and I am hearing you. I'm here to bear witness. My son goes to Lincoln too.
Thank you.
Lincoln is a wonderful school, but it has lots of problems. It's been 2 years of a pandemic. Just today we've released optional for masks, but there's lots of challenges for the kids there, and to the point of getting parents involved. Please, parents, come to the school board meetings. We hear an awful lot from a certain group of parents, but we don't hear enough from the parents that go to Lincoln and the schools that have the kids that need the most. And I'm here to bear witness. I'm not going to answer any questions because this is under investigation right now. And I will say the superintendent is doing the best he can at the moment, but it's not enough. And also I want to say that there are some really great police officers. My son's best friend is a police officer. He provided security last night. I trust him. We need to have community policing. I know there are police in the crowd right now. They've got the solutions, the answers, but they're getting us together. Parents, community, police together. Thank you for this opportunity, and you'll be heard.
Can we just have you say your name and spell it?
Todd Price.
All right, any last minute questions?
Can we have the other speakers say their names and spell it as well?
Yes. Me, Talivia Cole, T-A-L-E-A-V-I-A, Cole, C-O-L-E.
Laura Bielefeld, B-I-E-L-E-F-E-L-D-T.
Elizabeth Webb, E-L-I-Z-A-B-E-T-H, W-E-B-B.
Omar Flores, O-M-A-R-F-L-O-R-E-S.
Femi Akimoladun, F as in Frank, E-M-I, last name A-K-I-N-M-O-L-A-D-U-N as in Nancy. That's a lot.
Vaughn Mays as well, V-A-U-N-M-A-Y-E-S. And I would like to bring one more point into this. This, y'all heard the term bullying mentioned several times. We've had legislation, policy, all these different things put into place to prioritize and say we care about these kids in these situations. But I can tell you in a number of schools, Milwaukee and surrounding and outside, that priority is not a priority. They are not enforcing this. They are not standing with these children. They are not supporting these children, which the children feel if they're not supported, then their parents won't be able to support them as well. So a lot of this goes unnoticed. And we cannot allow somebody who's a victim of bullying or a victim anybody who's defending themselves to be the person that ends up getting in this position, injured, facing charges, etc. So we need to talk to our legislators, the school board, and all of them to put more priority on supporting young people around the issue of bullying, since we say we care about it so much. And the next thing, I heard the father mention a story that was told to him. These officers also need to be held accountable, and the departments, when they put out these false narratives about what happened. When that is found to not be true, somebody needs to pay for that. We see this too many times where they give you, they're flat out lying. And to lie to the community like that, that means, one, you're not prioritizing and doing a complete and thorough and unbiased investigation. You're putting out the story you want to put out. That is not the facts. If we see video or if we see evidence contrary to what they put out, then somebody needs to be paying for that. The officer for lying and the department for supporting and backing that line without doing thorough investigation.
All right, once again, thank you, Vaughn. Thank you to the family, attorney, and all the organizations and community members who came out, also the media and the school board itself. I yield the floor once again. If you want to come out and support us, please do. Please contact me at t.cole@the3THEETHREE Inc. All right.
Jerrel, last name Perez.
Y'all have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Good job.